In last week's video, I took you for a tour in a nuclear plant hidden in a mountain in the suburb of Fuling. While in Fuling, I found another interesting place. A stone ridge that has world's earliest hydrological inscriptions. It provided low-water hydrological data of the Yangtze River for more than 1,000 years. Now it's in an underwater museum. In today's video, let's get to know this special stone ridge. This is where the Wu River meets the Yangtze River. I'm Yan Yan. I'm in Fuling, Chongqing. If you ask 10 Chinese what they know about Fuling, at least 9 out of 10 will tell you zha cai. And the best zha cai is from here, Fuling, and its brand is Wu River. Zha cai is a kind of pickled vegetable which is in almost every Chinese family's fridge, just like ketchup in Americans' fridge. The most famous brand is Yangtze River. I used to buy it in supermarkets in Chinatown when I lived abroad. You can check the Asian supermarkets in your city. Maybe you can find it and try it. Fuling is a beautiful city. Coming back from the nuclear plant, I spent some time walking around in the city the next day. While strolling randomly, I came across a museum by the Yangtze River. The name of the museum stimulated my curiosity. The White Current Ridge Underwater Museum. Description of the museum says the White Current Ridge is a hydrological wonder under the water. I walked in the museum. This big stonefish caught my attention immediately. A group of people were about to take the escalator down to the exhibition room under the water. I followed them. The escalator took us to the water 40 meters below. Walking past the hallway, we came to a narrow corridor with many windows. This huge stone with inscriptions all over it is the White Current Ridge. These 3 Chinese characters are its name, Bai He Liang. The guide stopped in front of a window and told us from that window we could see a fish. It seems like that's what everyone was looking for. This is the side view of the stone. The entire time in this corridor was about 10 minutes, and I was left super puzzled of how the stone and the inscriptions were related to hydrology. With dozens of questions in mind, after I came back to the main building, I went to the second floor where there is an exhibition. This long animated picture on the LED screen suddenly lit me up. Ah, this was the White Current Ridge. It was a stone ridge in the middle of the Yangtze River. People were enjoying leisure time on the stone ridge. Kids were flying kite on it. Men were fishing. The more I read, the more I was attracted by this stone ridge. The stone ridge is about 1,600 meters long and about 25 meters wide, approximately parallel to the southern bank of the Yangtze River. It was submerged under the water all year round and only appeared during the low water season of the river in winter. The stone ridge has a leucochromatic sandstone surface, which is rather flat, about 14.5 degrees angled northward. When it was exposed, local people would take a boat to the stone ridge and hang out there as this picture shows. Since the 8th century in the Tang Dynasty, people had started to carve marks on this natural stone ridge to record the lowest water level in the year. The reference was a pair of fish carved on the stone during the Tang Dynasty. People carved onto the stone ridge the time of the appearance of the stonefish, the distance from the stonefish to the low water line, as well as the observer's name. Taking this replicated inscription from the stone ridge, for example. It simply says in the 7th year of Scenic, the water level is here. Scenic is one of the reign titles in Northern Song Dynasty. The 7th year of Scenic was 1074 AD. The mark was 42 centimeters below the eyes of the fish. This one is special because it marked the water level directly. Other inscriptions didn't mark it, but described how far the water level was away from the fish. And it's easy to calculate water level from those descriptions. This method is the same as modern hydrological measuring using water gauge, and it started in the 8th century. In this stone ridge, the water level data of the Yangtze River in 72 low water years over about 1,200 years from the 8th century to the early years of this century. So this stone ridge is also called the gauge of the Yangtze River. The original rockfish were deteriorated over the years. This pair of line engraving fish were carved during the Qing dynasty in the 17th century in the original place of the fish from the Tang dynasty. There are 18 rockfish carvings on the stone ridge in total, 1 in relief, 2 in bas relief, and 15 in line engraving. The biggest one was the one we saw earlier in the hall. It was carved during the Qing dynasty 200 years ago. The ones the guide pointed to us in front of the window were this pair of line engraving fish. This footage was filmed in front of that window. Can you guys find any rockfish? I can't, but everyone else was claiming seeing them. These data were called low water level data because they were all below the level of the reference fish. People only recorded when the fish were exposed out of the water. That's also the reason why there were only 72 records out of more than 1,000 years. Over the years, people inhabiting along the Fuling ridge of the Yangtze River found a pattern. When the water receded and the stonefish appeared, the next year would see bumper crops. This was recorded multiple times on the stone. There was a saying in this region, out of the water appear the rockfish, out of the field come rich crops. It's not coincidence. There's internal relations among hydrology, weather, participation, and agriculture. Further studies shows that the water level at the eyes of the twin fish is 137.91 meters. It coincided with the average low water level of the Fuling ridge of the Yangtze River before the construction of the Three Gorges Dam. It's also close to the local gauge 0. Sometimes we have to respect the wisdom of the ancient people. The large detailed water level records over 1,000 years, together with the rich inscription, are of great scientific value. The design of the Three Gorges project even consulted those data. Speaking of the Three Gorges project, it was the reason why the White Current Ridge is now under the water forever. Although 500 kilometers away from the Three Gorges Dam, this section of the Yangtze River is within the reservoir. The rising of water caused the White Current Ridge to submerge under the water forever. In order to protect this valuable cultural relic, many plans were proposed. One straightforward method was to cut stone off and place it in a museum. But in the end, the plan to build an underwater museum was accepted. This is a prototype of the museum. It's built on the levee of the Yangtze River. A cap was built to cover the stone ridge. 2 elevators connect the main building to the corridor under the water where visitors could observe the stone ridge. The water inside the cap is connected to the Yangtze River, but when the water flows into the cap, it's purified so it's clear enough for visitors to see the stone. The project costed 200 million yuan, which is about $30 million. Out of the window is the Yangtze River. To the right is the confluence of Wujiang River and the Yangtze River. Lying on the main traffic route of the Yangtze River, the ridge provided a very good location for inscription. Since the Tang Dynasty, when poets, officials, and merchants traveled via Fuling and the stone ridge happened to appear, they would come to the stone ridge by boat, lingering there and writing poems to be inscribed on the stone. Many poems were about the stonefish and how they brought harvest. This inscription here was not in Chinese characters, but in ancient Mongolian script. It was inscribed during the Yuan dynasty, which was ruled by the Mongols. This script is called the Paspa script. It was the official script of the Yuan dynasty, but was abandoned by the Mongols after the collapse of the Yuan dynasty. Although short-lived, the Paspa script left its mark on the White Current Ridge in the middle of the Yangtze River. Before leaving the museum, I went to see the animated picture again. Gazing on the picture, I regretted knowing the White Current Ridge so late. I wish I could have learned it before it had submerged under the water and could have stepped on it and touched it instead of looking at it far away through windows and water. It was just announced on the first day of 2021 that the Three Gorges Dam had produced 111.8 billion kilowatt-hour of power in the past year. It broke the world record that Itapu Dam in Brazil set in 2016. In celebrating this new world record, I personally can't ignore the intangible price we paid. The project changed the landscape of the middle reach of the Yangtze River, which was a core area of Chinese civilization forever. And unfortunately, I didn't come to this region before the launch of the project. In next week's video, I'll travel further upstream along the Yangtze River and take you to one of my favorite cities in China. The light rail that goes through a residential building. The ropeway that crosses over the Yangtze River. The cave in the cliff behind the layers of houses. The entire city is like an amusement park to me. I'm Yan Yan. I upload a video every Saturday about sites of interest in China and histories and stories behind them. Subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next week in Chongqing.